That was an extra item that was on the agenda, and there's no need for a closed session, so that one will not happen. Is there anything else, Carla, that any additions or deletions other than that closed session?
No, there is not.
Okay. All right. So the agenda is there. First item then is confirmation of the agenda. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Marshall and Councillor Rose. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Good. Anybody got a conflict of interest with the agenda? Okay, moving on, the consent agenda is there. We have 9 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like us to pull or support or pay any special attention to? Dean?
Yes, item 4.5. Township of South Perth letter regarding the provincially significant wetlands designation. I'd like for West Perth Council to support Perth South and the other communities mentioned in that letter.
Okay, all right, so noted. Is there anything else? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll make a motion on the consent agenda and, oh, sorry, Carla?
Yes, I believe it was in March. Sorry, I'm lost for months now. Council did support that resolution, and a letter was sent to all the
okay,
all the
right.
ministers. So if you want to send it again, but we have previously supported and sent that correspondence.
Okay, so we really have dealt with it. Is that satisfied, Dean?
That's good.
Okay.
I hadn't realized we'd done that already. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there was a few of them that have come across a few months ago, and I thought we had, but I wasn't sure. So anyways, we have already supported that. So I guess if there's nothing else that anybody wants pulled or any further clarification on it, a motion to accept the consent agenda, the 9 items that are on there would be in order. Moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Harold. Any further discussion on anything there? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. I gotta look at on my screen, and I realize everybody's screen is different, and I notice that when I look at it when I get home. My bottom half is all dark because that's all staff down there. So I just have to look at the top row +1. Okay, moving on then. Public meeting delegation. We do have Tony Jackson from Rural Roots and about the the roadside tree planting. And somebody is going to let Tony in. I think he's out in the hallway waiting to come in. Am I right? Oh, there he is. Good. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you okay, Tony? A couple lessons here. You got to hit mute to talk or unmute to talk.
Yeah, I think I'm here. So, yep.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah, it just let me in, so that's good.
Okay, good. Well, we're at that stage in the agenda that it's up for you to give us your report or whatever you want to discuss, and you want to do that, and then we'll ask if there's any questions at the end.
Sure. So I think everyone should have seen the full report. Actually, there's 6 pages roughly. So, and I just had a quick summary that there were 87 trees planted, the size of the trees, the fact that we had planted them in 8 different locations in all 3 wards, and kind of summarized the costs. So, using the municipal contribution of $37.50, and we added another $47.50 through the First Stewardship Network. Plus, obviously, there was a lot of in-kind work and contributions throughout. So certainly, it wasn't without its challenges, being a very strange year, I guess, to say the least. But anyway, we seem to work our way through, I believe, in the spirit and the intent of the agreement. So we had quite a few challenges getting comparative pricing. Actually, a lot of that was done over the phone. And it was a little bit frustrating because some of the bigger people didn't know whether they would have the staff available to pull the trees and what the timing would be, so on and so forth. But we did work through that as well. We did have some consultation with both conservation authorities, but basically one of the things that John Enright had suggested was we may want to go through Winklemolen, which is their tree supplier for the big stock. So I did contact them, and they basically said, go through your local people, because they didn't know if they were going to be able to get supply out to everybody this year as well. I tried to meet, well, we did meet with Jeff Brick in January to make sure we went over any questions on the governance and communications, because obviously meetings were difficult to do, and with my job, obviously. And so it was kind of agreed that we would just communicate through Jeff Brick on the anything that was going on with the trees. So that's kind of how we proceeded, or that's how we understood it anyway. And we went ahead with the communication to some people that hadn't been interested initially. We had some prior interest before we ever came to council, obviously. But it worked out. We probably had more people that were interested in trees than we could ever provide, both monetary or in effort and time. But anyway, we got 8 locations done, and good size stock. The participants have all been quite good so far. After the tree planting, I sent a note out to all the recipients, and they've all done watering and tending to the trees. So probably they've been watered 3 times. I hope we have a little more rain show up in the forecast, because it's certainly takes a lot of water. They need roughly 1 inch a week of rain equivalent. So it's been an unusual spring again, to say the least. So in both weather and social distancing and everything else going on. And yeah, so we tried to follow the model that was laid out in front of us as best we could. And I think we were fairly successful. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, again, I think you should have received the report that I typed up for Jeff. I could have probably put some more mapping and stuff in it. I just ran out of time, but I didn't want to delay having this come to council for review and questions. So thank you for your time.
All right. Yes, thanks, Tony. Okay, any questions for Tony on the tree report there? Okay, Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if possible, it's lot and concession, but for us people that grew up with the 911 numbers, if the report could come back with the actual 911 numbers for the locations.
Sure. I think actually in the forms that they sign, some of them have it. Yeah, most of them have it actually. I just didn't put it in the report, but all the information that Jeff has copies of the landowner permission forms, it's on all of them. I just didn't put it in my report, but it is there, and we can revisit that and put them on there, no problem.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Mike?
Comment and a question. I think it's great that we're doing all this for the rural wards. Sorry. Just wondering about Mitchell. Like, I know the new stuff, the subdivision agreements speak to it. But if anybody in Mitchell wants to do a small project or get some trees, this might be for Tony or Jeff to answer where we direct those people.
You want to answer that, Jeff? Oh, Carla, can you turn Jeff back on again? There he is. Okay, good. Go ahead.
So there is some money that was included in the 2020 budget for the municipality and the operations budget. We did put money back into that budget. So there is, I think, a $2,000 allocation that we moved back into that budget. So that's where that would come out of. And there is also still the Environment, Forestry and Trails Committee, which would have money in their budget Now, I believe that committee chose to not run a subsidized tree planting program this year, but it could reactivate that program at some point in time in the future.
I think Dean had a question and then Jeff. Am I right, Dean?
Yes, one question for Tony. The level of funding received from the municipality for the Rural Roots program, is that sufficient going forward for next year, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think Tony is froze.
Am I?
There you go. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, miss. Anyway, we could easily use and there's a balance to be struck too. So, it's better than not. Great. We'll try to match it through other sources. I mean, there's lots of interest. So, matter of practicality and what's financially doable.
Okay. I'm looking for, oh, there's Jeff. Okay, Jeff, you had a question?
Just actually a comment. It was asked about or mentioned about the subsidized trees that we used to run through the committee. We stopped doing it because we got it from we got all the stock through the conservation authorities, and they were doing it themselves anyway. So we really didn't make sense for us to act as a middleman when they could get a better deal straight from the conservation authorities anyway. So that's why we didn't run it this past year.
No, I know somebody else had their hand up, but I can't. Anna Marie.
Yes, I want to ask Tony, did the landowners have to pay anything towards the trees, or did they help plant them, or do they just look after them?
They're helping to look after them. Because of landowners had and the time that it was available, the window available to get the trees, when the trees were available, they went in right away. So there wasn't a lot other than most landowners had it flagged already. And on those sites where we had preliminary evaluation, where the service locates were done, everything was pretty much done a tour around the sites beforehand. So we kind of had an idea where so a couple landowners had done a tremendous job of and flagging everything, and it was great. So yeah, but the landowners all been great to water so far, and we obviously expect there's going to be. It's way better than not having any support at all. So midsummer, so far it's going good. So
Okay. You want?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Jeff?
I'll just mention on the budget question that the budget that was the allocation was for the 2019 budget. So that was carried. And then, of course, there was an allocation in the 2020 budget again. So there is some extra money in there. If there's a spring 2021 program, we can obviously work with Rural Roots to dip into that carried over money. And so that we can do. And then I would just, and I can take this as direction if you like or whatever. I would like to sit down with Tony and Rural Roots and just kind of evaluate how things went and take a look back at the governance model. And just there are parts of it that clearly, because and it's some of it's definitely COVID related, that we can look at how we perhaps reformulate that and move forward. I think that definitely the spirit of the agreement was met this year, and I don't want that to be left unsaid. And also, I think there's trees in the ground, which is an obvious success. But I think just in terms of making sure that we'd like to help Rural Roots to promote it through our social media as well, and I'd like to see those locations in future pre-approved, just on the basis that you'll start to get out to areas where planting hasn't been done before, and we'll want to make sure that they're suitable to the operations manager. But I get it for this year, and I don't want to diminish the success of the program in any way. So thanks.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I like Cheryl's comment about the 911 numbers, just so that we can inventory it every year and show people if they want to take a drive and see what we're doing and where they are, then they can go see it. I think that's a great place to start, and we can build on it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else? The only comment that I have, and Jeff kind of mentioned that, is just to bounce it off of I'm gonna try to bounce it off it's just to bounce it off the operations manager where we're going to put them, because he has the knowledge of where future fiber optic lines and everything else are going to go. And it would be a shame to be planting trees in some place where they were going to interfere with any future, road maintenance or any future type of development that would happen there. But that can be easily done, just even with the 911 numbers, if you know far enough ahead where you're going to plant them. Obviously, the landowners are on side, so I think you've got that looked after. So yeah, I think if you and Jeff sit down, I think that'll be good, and it certainly looks like it's a very well worth program. I'm getting a bit of feedback here. I don't know whether anybody else is or not, but I've got a couple resolutions here. We want one resolution, and I guess I'm not sure which one we want to pick. I guess the first one is the Municipality of West Perth directs staff to approve the funding for rural routes as committed in the 2019, subject to staff reviewing and approving the locations of the 220 planning. I think we've done that. I think we could probably take that last part off of that motion. Jeff is going to sit down and review the governance model, which was the next one. So I think that first one that we have there probably sums it up fairly well. Wouldn't you say so, Jeff? That's kind of what we want. So I did read it there, and I can read it again if you wish, but really what now I'm looking for is somebody to move and second that. So Councillor Marshall is going to move it. Do we have a seconder for it? Councillor Trinkowski, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, Mike, you have a question?
Oh, that's all in favor.
All in favor? Okay, let's get at her, Mike. All in favor. Very good. That's carried. Thank you. So thank you very much, Tony. Looks like a job well done.
Next time too, so.
Good, good. Thank you. Okay. You have kind of a poor connection there, Tony. I'll just tell you that you were breaking up a little bit here, so we weren't just too sure all the time what you were saying. At least I wasn't, anyways. It was breaking up at this end. So, anyways, thank you very much, and keep in touch with Jeff, and we'll look for something further later on. Okay. Items number 6, reports, and the first one is the chief building official, so that's Bob, and the sign variance applications. So Bob, there he is. Okay, floor is yours, Bob.
Thank you. How's my volume, everyone?
It's good. It's good.
Great. Thank you. First, we have is 2 applications for our sign variance bylaw. These come in the end of April. We had to review them with the MTO and the Conservation Authority, along with our existing bylaw. They had to go through the variance process because one sign is larger than our permitted sign face. The other sign is a second installation of a sign already on a property. So there again, we had to go through the variance process. They have MTO approval. They have Conservation Authority approval. The department recommendation is for acceptance of the variance applications to allow the signs to be placed in accordance with the bylaw.
You're not on, Walter.
There, I am now. Yeah. by the end of the night, I'll know what I'm doing here. Any questions for Bob on the sign variance? Okay, if not, I do have a motion here that West Perth approve the applications for exceptional circumstances to sign bylaw 80, 2010 at properties 5851, line 34 and 5557, line 34. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose and Councillor Matheson. Any questions or further discussion? Deputy Mayor Knight.
So the only reason we're doing this is because the applicant wants to make more money. That's what it says on the sheet. I just want to say that it does for a better return on investment. So just so we have that noted, the only reason we're doing these is for better return on investment. That's all I wanted to say. I was going to say it before, but now Anna Marie wants to talk. So
You gotta find her. Where's Anna? There's Anna Marie. Go ahead.
Yes, I guess I was wondering what the exceptional circumstances were.
Bob?
As per our sign bylaw, the first sign has a sign face of aggregate 18.5 square meters. Our bylaw restricts that area to 14 square meters, so they had to get permission to install a larger sign at that location.
Okay.
The other one, the other property already has an existing billboard, which our bylaw limits to one. So the exceptional circumstances to add a second sign to the property.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Any other questions on that? Okay, normally at this time I'd look to Carla, but I think we have a mover and seconder, do we not? I think we did, yes. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Okay, opposed, if any? Let's just do that again. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that motion's carried. Thank you. The next item then is the April permit summary, and then followed that by the May permit summary.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Construction value for the month of April was $6.6 million. We had 26 permits issued and 4 zoning certificates for the month for refinancing or the sale of properties. Permits are listed.
Any questions on that? Okay.
6.13 is the May permit summary. We had $3.576 million in construction value, 29 permits, 10 zoning certificates for financing and mortgaging, sale of properties. You notice between the two different months, we have a lot more residential permits with pools, decks, fences, that sort of thing. These were the permits that we were holding because of the provincial guidance under the emergency management orders. So everything is approved now for construction. So there should, from our perspective, there should be no slowdown in any construction related activities.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Any questions on the May report? Jeff?
Just curious, was there a big drop year to year from given what's going on with this, or did it?
No, it's pretty much business as usual. Our permit numbers are equal to the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. And the last item, Upper Thames Risk Management Services. Are you going to highlight that, Bob?
I can, Your Worship. 6.14 is our annual report card from the conservation authorities. They are contracted to our risk management, and this is a very similar to report compared to our last 2 years.
Okay,
Business as usual.
all right. Was there anybody had any questions on that report? It was a fairly detailed report.
Yes, they're
Okay.
not getting any shorter.
No, there was quite a bit of reading material there. Okay, if there's no questions on that, then thanks, Bob. We'll move on. The next item then is 6.2.1, a development agreement as per Committee of Adjustment approval for a minor variance application, D1301 by Pat Schooner with Acres Limited. Who am I going to look for? Oh, there he is. Very good. Adam.
Good evening, everybody. So on Thursday night of last week, the Committee of Adjustment heard 2 applications. It was the first of virtual hearings or public meetings that the municipality held, and I believe they went pretty well. One of the minor variances, which is the subject of my report tonight, was for an MDS reduction for a new swine finishing barn. The Committee of Adjustment supported my recommendation that the application for a minor variance would meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, provided a number of conditions were satisfied, one of which requires a development agreement that would be registered on title to the subject lands that would prohibit any future expansion. And I will read the one particular condition that the committee supported. And it reads that prior to the issuance of a building permit for the new swine finishing barn, the owner applicant shall enter into an agreement with the municipality of West Perth, which prohibits any further expansion of the 1,600 head swine finishing barn. So I have put together a development agreement. There are 2 components of the agreement. One speaks to any further expansion, specifically no further expansions that would require further relief from the MDS2. And another component which acknowledges and will secure a windrow that will be on the specific property line in between the impacted neighbor to the west. So I've prepared a development agreement for council's consideration. Unless there's any further questions from council, there's nothing to add to my report.
Okay, questions for Adam on that report? Okay, seeing none, then the recommendation is here. We might as well deal with it. That we received the report, the development agreement per Committee of Adjustment, and that council proceed with the adoption of bylaw number 46, authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the development agreement with Pat Schooner with Acres Limited. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Tam, whoops, and Councillor Matheson. And good, I thought we were going to lose here for a bit. The screen went blank and then it come back on again. Okay, any further questions on that motion then? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, that's carried. Thanks, Adam. So we do have, that's it. I thought we had another one, but we don't. Okay, the next is Fire Chief's report. And I know Bill is around here somewhere. Okay. There he is. Okay, Bill, it's all yours.
Thank you. Tonight, the activity report deals with March and April of 2020. We did complete one regular practice in March before COVID hit. So the rest of the training that you see in April was done by the firefighters remotely without coming to the fire station. Calls were down a little bit, but we did have 2 structure fires during the month of March. So our hours, you can see, aren't really a huge reduction from previous years. And I'll gladly answer any questions from council.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Mike?
Just a question again to revisit this tanker issue, Bill. So we decided to get a safe date roadworthy, whether it's to use or to sell. So when do we decide, or are we gonna talk again about what the use is gonna be once it's safety?
I'm not sure I understand I thought the resolution from council was that we would safety the truck and it would be used for 1 year from the date of safety as a fire truck.
Okay, I thought it said that it could be to make it more saleable or for use. I thought it was a twofold resolution. I just thought that was kind of gray the way we left it. So that we were getting it safety and going from there, basically.
I guess that was kind of my thought on it, Bill, as well. I know the discussion was that we get it safetied, and it would probably be worth a bit more to a future purchaser, advertised as a truck that's already safety. So, oh, of our page 43, Jeff says, if we look at page 43, oh, in the minutes, yeah. So I got to go back. Actually, I could look
I
here.
can do it. So I can do it for you,
All
Walter.
right, Jeff's going to pull up the resolution.
So the minutes of the last council meeting, the specific section we're talking about is page 43 of page 220, and the resolution is there that West Perth Council received the report, and so on. And then the second part of the resolution is that West Perth Council authorized staff to proceed with the required repairs to the tanker, to be used for 1 year, and to sell the 1996 tanker at that time. So that was the resolution that we understood and was in the minutes of the last council meeting.
Okay, there you have it. Mike, any further?
No, that's fine. The article in the paper didn't read that way, but I didn't realize. I thought the resolution said to fix it up to either sell or for use.
Well, I know we certainly talked about that, and the comment was made that it would stand maybe a little better market if it was safety. So maybe once we get it safety, we can have that discussion again, and gives us a bit of time that we can use it, or then advertise it.
And I will also add, if forgive me for not saying this the first time, I'll also add that the direction that we received was to bring this back as a consideration at council. I think the expectation, as I heard it at that council meeting, was that there would be an inventory of rolling stock provided that gave us an indication of the various years that trucks will hit that magic 25 number. And over the course of time here, council may make a decision about where they might strategically add an extra asset.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any other questions for Bill?
Walter?
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Doug.
I don't know where you're looking, but I'm over here. Bill?
Well, on mine, you're over there.
There's when they build these large livestock facilities in the country, is there any indication that, like I notice up in Waterloo around Millbank and all of that, a lot of them have large water reservoirs in the ground to help fight fires. Is that a chief building official thing? Or is it because they all run industrial commercial shops as well? Like they have a lot of water out in the country. I drive around up there all the time. Every mile and a quarter, I'll say, has a tank in the ground. Would that ever be a consideration for these mega farms? Like I drive by a 900 head dairy barn and I think, holy cow.
If a building's built under the farm building code, there is no requirement for on-site water. I'm familiar with a lot of the farms operations in the Wellesley area that have on-site water, and a lot of them have secondary farm operations, weld shops, fabrication shops. Those would be the items that would trigger the requirement for on-site water. But just a typical livestock building does not meet the requirement under the Farm Building Code. Now, we have just in the last year, a couple large barns have been built in Perth East that they weren't able to meet the fire separation requirement of the Farm Building Code. So as an alternative solution, we suggested that they could put on-site water in, and they decided to do that. That way they were allowed to make the large building. It was impossible or would have been too expensive to put in the fire separations. So they were allowed to put in some detection devices and some on-site water. But that's not a typical barn that you would see going up.
Okay,
I just wouldn't mind.
okay.
I certainly am not gonna wander into Bill's expertise of the fire code and building code, because that's him and that's the expertise that he and Bob have. But I do want to mention development charges to council. And we did just update our development charges bylaw. You'll recall, and we did not contemplate adding development charges for commercial. And again, it's that line between the farm building code and a regular commercial building that we're kind of relying on. And I as staff, we didn't have it in the past, and we didn't bring it forward as an option. The consultant wasn't that excited about the idea, but you'll recall when we approved the development charges that we did, we are collecting money towards the fire hall, for example, the expanded fire hall for expanded service. But it's a very small amount because there's so few residential buildings being built in the rural area. The reality of our agricultural development probably is that if we really wanted to generate some money and kind of have a system that's closer to a user pays for services gained kind of system, we might in the future consider adding a commercial agricultural or a certain size of agricultural facility where a development charge kicks in to pay for a project, like a second tanker. And I think ideally we want to connect the service received to the price being paid for it, but we didn't do it in this round of development charges, and it's not without controversy. As I understand it, North Perth contemplated it and received a lot of negative feedback about the idea, and I understand where the feedback's coming from. But I also think if we take a long look at where the investment's being made in our rural area, that's causing us to push the need for a second tanker, it's not the additional houses and the risk of life of those residents. It's actually more the additional investment in large structures that are storage and also operational. And so it's a sign of a healthy agricultural business, but it's putting a bit of stress on our ability to protect them to the level we want to protect them. And so when the development charges come up the next time, I think we may want to consider whether that's an option to bring forward. And I know it's another 4 years out or 5 years out, but it's out there on the horizon.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all right. Thank you, Bill.
Great. Thanks very much.
The next report is the library board, and Anna Marie, you want to give us the highlights of that?
Just that Caroline Schuberg told us that she would like to retire at the end of the summer, September. And so we're going to be starting the process of looking for another CEO.
Right. Okay. Any questions for Anna Marie? All right, moving on then. The next report is recreation and facilities. So Darcy, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. My report is in front of you. I went into quite detail as well as I included the guiding document of what restrictions and what guidelines we'd have to do to open the pool. I left the options available for the pool and splash pad. As noted, I didn't get time to really look into for sure exactly what we'd have to do with the splash pad. We went into quite depth with the pool. Staff worked with the Life Saving Society. We worked with SWARFA. We worked with the health unit, and basically anybody we could bend their ear to listen to us and give us guidance. We really do feel like we got a good document in place, a lot of good procedures. Obviously, you can't totally get the risk to zero, but we feel like with this document, we could mitigate the risk as best we can. As a recreation professional, it'd be a shame to see the pool empty for the summer, so we did everything we could to try to make the pool safe and available for the residents of West Perth. And I think with this guiding document, I think we could do the best we can, but I'll open it up for any questions you guys may have.
All right, questions for Darcy? Jeff?
I don't think I saw it in there. How soon could they be opened up?
So the health unit just got back to us late Friday, and they are starting to get open for inspections. That's kind of what we were waiting on. The health unit didn't really know their capacity. So technically they could open up now. Now our pool is probably about 3 weeks out. I would say no earlier than July 3rd for sure. If everything went perfect, we might be able to open July 3rd, but I'm really worried about putting an exact date on it. I think realistically July 6th we could be open for sure.
I know comments that I've heard when I've been asked about the pool and splash pad and that is that they sure hope that we can open the splash pad for the younger families. Certainly they make great use of that. So other questions, Doug?
The fencing of the splash pad. Now I talked to Darcy and Jeff about this, about if you're only allowed 9-10 people, we're gonna, and a temporary fencing we can put around it just to make sure that a bunch of kids don't run in. I find it harder than the pool. The pool's fenced. You only allow 10 people in, I believe, Darcy. After an hour, you eliminate those 10 people. You wait a half an hour, clean, and you bring 10 more people in.
So it's actually, sorry, numbers for the open swims are actually 20. And that is allowed. We have talked to the Life Saving Society, and we do have 2 pools plus the provincial 10-person social gathering does not really apply. It's kind of like the store, not necessarily as a 10 people, as long as you can do the spacing, and they ask for reduced capacity. So on the open swims and family swims, we were going to allow 20.
Well, that's even better. And then the splash pad. So could 20 kids be in the splash pad?
I don't think there's enough space to justify 20 in the splash pad. The splash pad actually to me is a harder one too. We as we noted in there, we probably would have to staff it, but there's a lot of touch points on the splash pad that would be very hard. We do have the chlorine in the water at the splash pad, which is a bonus for us. There is a disinfectant right in the water, so the spread throughout the water is not really a risk, but the touch points are a risk for the splash pad in my eyes.
And would you be in favor of putting a temporary fence around it to kind of control the entrance? Like I said, I don't expect a lifeguard to stand there and say, 9, get out. I expect somebody just to be there.
Yeah, that's what so the Life Saving Society, their first guideline they came out with said, yes, that they expect a fence. Now they are going to kind of back up on that because some places just can't afford the fencing or what. But I think my recommendation would be that we would fence and have a staff member available to limit the numbers, to limit the risk.
And I read in London, to follow up, that they just put a sign up at their splash pads that says, use at your own risk. So that's a big city, but they just use at your own risk. Is there any way to use hydrogen peroxide as opposed to chlorine?
Not in our system.
Not in our system. Okay. Because it will kill it. So, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Doug. And if we put a sign up, and I'm thinking of the splash pad, the numbers, you pick the number that you can have in there. With the splash pad, there's probably going to be parents with the kids that are going to be there. And they'll probably monitor that as well as anybody would with the numbers, because most of the parents are quite concerned about what's going on. Any other questions, Mike?
I'm all for opening both if we can safely. But the one comment that I've heard, especially in the public, is that the splash pad would really be nice. So I think people would understand if the pool was too cumbersome, but the splash pad, I've heard a lot of comments that would be nice to be open.
I'll say as the manager, I'm prepared that I think we could open both and it would be safe. The one thing I like about the pool is we can get to all ages with aquafit and lane swims and everything. I think we could service all of them. And I think if we follow the guidelines, it's obviously not going to be the pool as usual, but I think people are starting to get used to the restrictions and the different things we got to do. And there's going to be different things and we're going to follow a lot guidelines very strict, but I think we could open them both safely.
So the one item that was in your report, I guess, Darcy, was that it would be open for West Perth residents only.
That was definitely to start. I mean, that was something that we as staff decided on. I mean, if council feels any differently, but I feel like they're the ones that are going to be paying for the extra service. I think it should be open to them. And if the demand's not there with just West Perth residents, maybe we look at opening up. But I think to start, we open up for West Perth residents only.
No, and I understand that. So, okay. All right, there was four options that were listed there, and I'm just kind of doing Nicholas, sorry.
Well, then I would move option number 1, where we open both the pool and the splash pad, subject to the completion of the mandatory inspections and necessary supplies that we need.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. That's where I was aiming for, was the question. Jeff, you're going to move that? Or second that, rather? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody's keeping moving around on my screen here. I keep losing you. Okay, so it was moved by Nicholas and seconded by Jeff that we open both the splash pad and the pool. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any?
Mayor McKenzie?
Yes.
I can see Councillor Bell is frozen, but I believe she's trying to ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Now she's frozen again, so I don't know. I know she can hear us, but her computer keeps freezing.
Sorry, can you hear?
Yep, we can, well, partially hear you. Yes, go ahead, Cheryl, or go ahead. We've lost her, yeah. Well, we can come back to that if you want. I know we have a mover and a seconder. We can come back to that, and if she has a question that she wants answered before she votes on it.
I think she'd like you to hold off on voting for that, if that's okay.
Sure.
Wait 5 minutes. Is that
Yeah,
good?
no, we can do that. We'll carry on and come back to that. So the next item is about the tennis courts, and I'm not sure, maybe Jeff will give us an update on that one. So I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Hey, thanks, Mayor McKenzie. I just will give an update that we had a meeting. Today was the day we had a meeting with the tennis court. We had an exchange of information with the tennis court, and the tennis club, the Mitchell Tennis Club, has asked for some time to consider. We had a conversation about what additional time would mean in terms of the timeline, and they understand, but they just need a bit of time. And so I would ask that council defer consideration of this matter until the July 6th council meeting, at which point in time we will bring the same report back again, and we will again schedule a closed session in the event that there might be any questions that any councillors would like to ask, or if there's any advice to provide. But at this time, as of tonight, my advice to you as staff is to just defer a decision.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay. So I'm kind of waiting for Carla to come here. Do we need a motion for that, Carla, to defer any decision on the tennis courts until July?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so moved by Jeff, seconded by Councillor Harold, that we defer a decision on the tennis courts until July 6th meeting. And we'll deal with it at that time. So any further questions on what we're doing there? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay, now we'll go back with regards to the swimming pool. We've got Sherry back with us again. So Sherry, you had a question. You're muted, Sherry.
Okay, I have a couple. Can you?
Sure.
No, I'm not now. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because you guys are all frozen on my, screen.
Oh.
Okay, but as long as you can hear me. Okay, I have a few questions that my internet is going in and out and in and out. I've made everybody in my house shut everything off and it still keeps kicking me out. So forgive me if people have already asked these questions and I didn't hear them. So Darcy, you said that in your report that there will be a staff member wearing PPE on the deck?
Correct.
Okay, can you tell me what kind of PPE you're going to expect them to wear?
So it'll be masks, eye protection, could be a face shield, and gloves. And they'll also have.
So it'll be basically. Sorry.
So and they'll have a long sleeve shirt as well.
Keep going.
They'll have a long sleeve shirt and shorts that can be removed after. So they'll be declared the rescuer. They won't be going in the water. The lifeguard will go into the water, pull the victim out, and then they would take over the scene from there.
Have you ever tried that? I'm asking, I'm chuckling to myself because I lifeguarded my whole youth from age 14 to age 21 every summer and also in the winters at the Y. So I'm asking, how old will this person be that's going to be in full PPE standing on the deck in the hot sun all for their time frame? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just curious as to how old this 16, 17.
Our youngest lifeguard's 16, our oldest one's 21. So somewhere.
So will it be the 21-year-old that we expect to do it, or will it be the 16-year-old? I'm just curious as to what the plan is.
I can't totally answer that. They'll all be trained to be the rescuer at some point, and they'll all be in rotation, so they won't sit there all day.
Okay.
It'll be an hour at a time. They'll be in the rotation. So as well as they will obviously be provided with an umbrella and shade. We wouldn't just expect them in the sun, but they will be on deck ready to go with the PPE.
Right. Okay, so that was my question, because they are only, 21 is a young adult, but in general, the majority of our staff is only teenagers. So that was going to be my other question. Will we have an adult present? And why I'm asking that is, during all of this, Tim Hortons, the grocery stores, all of them still continue to employ their students, which is great. But there was always a seasoned worker or an adult there in case there was any trouble with the policies. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to troubleshoot. I'm being devil's advocate here. It's not that I don't want to open anything. I get it. We have a plan for an adult staff member, a seasoned staff member, to handle any of the policy issues that people will not like.
Yeah. So our supervisor has been there for a lot of years, and would be a young adult, as well as our two head guards. They're all, I would consider, seasoned lifeguards, and so one of them will always be on schedule, on shift. We wouldn't leave them without. Sorry.
I think we've lost her again.
I think she froze again.
Okay, because no, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Yeah, we got you again.
I'm still, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what's wrong. We paid the internet bill. I don't know. It keeps kicking out. Okay, so have we hired our staff already?
So we did the hiring early on.
Oh, did I lose you
Now
again?
we did defer the start date to a to be determined start date. Now we did go back to them all and we did lose 2 of them, but we still have enough. We've done
Okay.
the schedule for the summer that we know we have enough to cover what we need to cover for the summer, and we're ready to go that way.
Okay, and this is an off question, but it's a hot topic right at this point as we look at our first responders and the person who are, you know, is fully fitted wearing PPE and they're getting a wage increase for being that person. And part of our plan is to have someone who is our designated first responder on the thing. Will we be looking at a subsidized wage for that person who, you see what I'm,
Yeah.
right? Because we are for our
answer that
nurses, for our, and maybe you asked this question already and I just missed it.
No,
No.
that's a question that Jeff can answer, I think.
No, I
Okay.
can answer that
Just 'cause
question.
we are
There is
for everyone else.
there is a prescribed list of who is able to receive that extra pay. And obviously it's a very controversial topic. There's a
Right.
lot of organizations and staff and unions that have a lot of staff they'd like to have on the prescribed list.
Yeah.
And the rescuing lifeguard is not on the prescribed list.
Well, and I understand why it wouldn't be, and I'm not trying to be difficult. What I'm saying is that was a question that was posed to me. They said this staff member, whether it's a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old, that's going to be in full PPE, mask, gloves, the whole bit, standing on a poolside for an hour in the hot sun, will they be receiving, you know, expected to give CPR, expected to give first aid if needed? Will they be receiving anything more for their troubles, so to speak, or maybe that's nothing?
Oh, I'm just going
I think Jeff answered that.
Well, and actually, I'll continue with the answer. We have 3 levels of lifeguard salaries, and they fit into the grade 14, 13, and 12 in our grid. And the head lifeguard and the lifeguard supervisors at higher levels than the base lifeguards. So we have a grid that's built on additional responsibility being compensated more. And you know, Darcy could probably tell you, because I certainly wouldn't have the number about if we've ever done a resuscitation at our pool. But the key message here is that we have to plan for it.
Yeah.
We obviously hope it doesn't happen. And the plan that's been put together following the Life Saving Society guidance is to plan for it. And that's the plan you got in front of you.
Okay, no, I'm not trying to be difficult. It was just a question that was asked of me, so I said that I would ask it tonight. And the other question that was asked of me, I'm just looking at my list because I had a few of them over the weekend, people asking me about it. If the pool opens, then will the library open? And the municipal offices? If we're opening our pool and splash pad to the public with a plan, will we be opening the library to the public as well?
I'll answer this one. So it's a fair question. And so Councillor Bell, we're working on a West Perth reopens document that I mentioned in an operational update at the end of last week. We actually hoped to get it to this council meeting, but with a number of pressing matters, we had to leave it till the next council meeting. The municipal office, we are on a schedule to get the municipal office opened. Don't have a date. The library is managed by the library board, so I'm not going to make a decision for them. But there are very strict, in the same way that we've got strict guidance for the pool, we've got strict guidance from the health unit for a municipal office or for an office environment or a business environment. There is very strict guidance for libraries. They're allowed to be open, but patrons aren't allowed to touch books and a number of things. All of these guidance documents that are being used are based on the risks of the operations that are being managed.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions with regards to that? Okay. So I go back.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We had a mover and seconder. It was, I forget who did what. Nicholas moved, and was it Cheryl seconded? No, Jeff second maybe.
Jeff.
And so there was a few questions, and then we waited for Sherry here. So is there any other questions with regards to the swimming pool? Okay, All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, good, Darcy.
Oh, it looks like Jeff has a
Walter?
question, maybe.
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, I do have another question for Darcy. Actually, it wasn't on there, but I'm curious about the sports fields. I know minor baseball is looking at restarting, and we still have them closed. So I'm just wondering if they're going to be open anytime soon.
So I just drafted a document today. It's not quite as intensive as the pool, but a couple-page document describing the restrictions that are going to be at the Diamonds. I'm hoping to have that finalized for midweek to late week and have it out to and then probably open either Friday or Monday. But we're working on a document because there is, same as everything else, there is going to be some extensive restrictions to that as well.
Great, and I know I've been looking at the Ontario Baseball Association has put out their recommendations, and there's certainly a lot there. They not using the benches and bringing your own lawn chairs, that type of thing, and so they've got a pretty extensive back to ball program that they need to follow for that too. So perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions for Darcy before we move on? Okay, good. Thanks for the report, the in-depth report, Darcy. I know there's a lot of work there. Next is we go to our clerk's department, and we're going to have a report on the sidewalk patio cafe to support the businesses downtown. So Carla, and there she is. Go ahead.
There's a lot of information in that report. What we're looking to do is the food and beverage industry has no doubt been particularly impacted by the restrictions in place due to COVID-19. That would include that no patrons are permitted to be in their stores. A lot have had to move to curbside delivery. On June 8th, the AGCO, and that's who regulates liquor licensing, they amended Regulation 719 to support those liquor sales. So what that means is that individuals that currently have liquor licenses, that usually you'd have to get an additional liquor license to sell alcohol outside or serve alcohol outside. And what the AGCO has said that is that if you have a liquor license currently and you want to extend to an outdoor patio, then you wouldn't be required to go through the regular application process. So what they're doing is providing some flexibility till October 15th, just to remove that red tape. However, there are restrictions that they have been provided, more surrounding 1.1 meters per patron of space. However, they do additionally require municipalities' approval to do so. So we do have, West Perth does have a patio and cafe policy that is for municipal sidewalks. I do want to highlight that the amendment to the regulation and also in my recommendation is also to support on-site patios, sidewalk patios and cafes and tied housing. Tied houses. So a tied house, just for clarification, would be someone such as Black Donnelly that would generally be restricted to inside their establishment, or they may have already received the extension, could now operate outside of their establishment. So what my recommendation is recommending that West Perth Council provide that approval for these establishments to extend their liquor license. In addition, providing further flexibility in the application. So the application currently for a patio is $800. So recommending that to be reduced to $250. And as well as there's currently a required $2,000 deposit. That's quite normal in many of our applications. However, to ask for a business to put out that additional $2,000 deposit for us just to hold for safekeeping, we would recommend that within the agreement, we just indicate that they would be invoiced if we would need those funds. And currently in our sidewalk policy, we require metal barriers. So what the amendment to the regulation has recommended is also reducing, providing further flexibility to temporary barriers, so roping, temporary posts, knowing that some of these establishments, it might be for a short period, or they might be in a location that wouldn't regularly be recommended. So that is my report. I do want to comment, we did receive a few comments on extending it into the current parking. So some examples of where that's being done would be in Goderich in the square, or I believe it's called Marketplace in Stratford. And it's just important to note that those locations there, that those municipalities and cities have that flexibility, where West Perth, our downtown core is a connecting link, Highway 7 and 8. In addition, we have curb face sidewalk, which makes accessibility an issue, as well as the only current truck route.
Cell phone number.
Doug, you're,
Okay.
Doug, you're not muted.
Okay.
Oh, that was a question for me.
Yeah, questions on Carla's report? Anybody? Councillor
Right.
Rose. Sorry.
It's more, you can hear me?
Mhm.
All right, it's more of a comment. I agree with you, and I think we should open it up to try and give these businesses every opportunity to survive and get back to some kind of normalcy.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Doug, you had a comment?
In the one case
You
that.
gotta turn that TV off. It uses internet.
Oh, quit yelling at the TV. I'm speaking. I don't have the TV on. I'm reading my computer over here. I keep telling you that. Washroom facilities. The people aren't allowed to go in the buildings. So what do we, like, if I sit there for 3 hours, I think we have to, how are we gonna, is it the responsibility, like, I'm gonna use the one who called me and asked me about this, Rosencrown. His washrooms are right inside the front door. Would they, you think people would be allowed to go in the building to use them? Because
I would,
our public washrooms are open downtown yet.
well, even if our public washroom was open, that'd be quite the walk if you were at the Rose and Crown and that'd be quite the hike at that point. I would just probably be going home. But they have provided that language regarding restaurants. We received from economic development a kind of a guideline for restaurants, from OMAFRA, that was forwarded on to BIA. They did speak to it. I'd have to look further into it, but that'd be up to the establishment. So what the province is trying to do with the patios is extend some assistance to these businesses. However, it's one of those, they look great and say, hey, we're going to help businesses and extend patios, but restricting them to, you need to have 1.1 meters per individual means in some cases they could only have 2 tables. So I don't know. They'd have to speak with the province, but they have spoke to whether or not they can use the washrooms. I just don't know off the top of my head. I apologize.
Anna Marie.
I was wondering, can someone like the Rose and Crown, can they use the sidewalk in front of the next business on either side, or is there that flexibility?
So currently, there's some cities that are taking advantage of that on weekends. So not necessarily when the businesses are open and you need to get to the store next door, but they're extending it for weekends. And I don't see where that would be a concern. Our current bylaw exempts to, it can only be as wide as your current storefront. However, I think this is a manner which, and that's where we're looking for delegation of authority. We're not looking for staff aren't looking for a free for all. We're looking at the delegation of authority for us to look at it by case basis. Our obvious priority is accessibility. So there's no flexibility on providing that 5 feet, in front of the store for individuals to have access. But perhaps there's some flexibility to extend beyond to the next door. You don't also want to create that gathering space where a business is looking to extend 6 stores and then it becomes an actual full gathering. So I can look into what restrictions other municipalities have put in place for where they have permitted that extended use of a patio.
Okay.
I
Councillor
should
Bell.
note,
Oh,
should
sorry.
note too, like in the bylaw. So, I'm not every exemption was listed in my report because just a lot of them are going to be one-off. But for example, in the current bylaw, there is that they all had to be black umbrellas, which, for the look of the downtown area, there's a reason why it was placed in the bylaw, and many downtown businesses, BIAs want the storefronts to look a certain way. However, right now, someone generally doesn't have a patio and they can get a hold of 6 yellow umbrellas. I think staff would be in a position to, overlook the color of the umbrella, given, there's some things that I can't purchase right now just because of supply is an issue.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, that was going to be, I'm afraid to unmute myself here for the craziness that goes on in this house. That was going to be one of my questions because I knew the bylaw was talking about the uniformity of the way they look and that. The other question, I wondered if from council there was any appetite to waive the fee completely. I think we have 105 restaurants downtown, 4 or 5. And I just wonder with the shortened period, we're looking at basically July through to maybe part of September, if there was any appetite from council to actually waive the fee completely to allow the restaurants to maximize what they can in the next 8 to 10 weeks.
Councillor Jankowski.
And the other part of the question was, if we do.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Sorry, my internet's going in and out here again. The other question was, if I think we have one restaurant that already has their patio set up, and would we refund them any monies or differences that they paid for the year already?
I can speak to, we haven't done an application since I started with the municipality. So no, it would depend, but this has kind of shone some light on maybe some individuals that are complying outside of the current bylaw. So it'll bring some compliance as well, because there was more than, I think last year there was maybe 2 or 3.
Okay. Dean, you had a question?
Well, it was just in support of what Councillor Bell mentioned about waiving the fees. I would be comfortable waiving the fees entirely for the short duration we're dealing with.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Well, I think we have to keep in mind, we're not like Stratford or Goderich where we've got a large area in front of the establishments that we can give them, and we're kind of limited there. So this is maybe a little bit of flexibility that we could show towards them. But it's your call. I don't know. Anybody else have a comment on that at all? Doug?
I'd waive it, but we're only talking about alcohol selling on the street, right? Anybody can put a couple tables up and eat food on the street.
They would still under the sidewalk, the patio and cafe bylaw, because it's municipal property, that application always applies. So currently, if an establishment, we use Rose and Crown, wanted a patio a year ago, they would have been required to complete an application and pay the yearly fee and comply with the bylaw. Right now, and they could sell liquor if they had the liquor license. Right. AGO is saying you don't have to have a liquor license now to sell in the patio as long as you have a liquor license. So an establishment downtown that maybe chose to never get a liquor license, they wouldn't now be permitted to just sell alcohol. Does that answer what you're looking for? Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Before we go on, and I have the recommendation here, maybe a little bit of consensus. Councillor Bell mentioned about waiving the $250 fee, and Councillor Trinkowski also agreed with that. Maybe some nods of heads here or something, so that when I read the motion, we can take that into account. Is everybody kind of in favor of giving them that break? I see kind of a general consensus there. So, okay, I'll read the motion, and then we'll get a mover and seconder and go from there. So the recommendation is that West Perth receives the report sidewalk, patio, and cafe to support business recovery, and that West Perth endorses the amendment of Reg 719 of the Liquor License Act dated June the 8th, 2020 until January the 2nd, 2021, or as such time as the amendments are in effect by regulation. And further, that exemptions to the sidewalk, patio, cafe bylaw 52, 2013 be permitted to include the permissible temporary barriers, reduction in application deposit. We're going to waive that. So instead of a reduction, it would be waived.
Yep.
Waiving the application deposit, defer security deposit and alcohol license requirements until October the 15th, 2020, or until legislation amendments remain in place, and that delegation of authority be permitted to staff to authorize the entering into a patio agreement until October the 15th. So do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Murray, very good. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Good, good, Carla. Correspondence. Letter from BJ's regarding ice cream bikes. And I have a feeling this is a Carla thing too.
So essentially, what the owner is looking to do is operate the Dickie, like a Dickie D bike within, it sounded like just primarily Mitchell to start. So our refreshment vehicle bylaw that was recently done by myself just a couple of years ago is good. However, it looks like it makes it a little bit more difficult for ice cream bikes because it isn't as clear. But she is looking for, if you'll recall from that bylaw, is that they're not permitted to be on municipal property without municipal permission. So this individual, we had a good conversation of what she was looking to do. I do want to note that within this request, she's noted the arena. Now, we can't really, under our current Ketterson booth agreement, we would not be permitted, within that agreement states that we won't let anybody else operate a food truck or a food vendor in that current agreement. So for the council to provide that exemption to her might make it more difficult for the other agreement. I just want to note that. But she's looking for a number of locations to be located. And those aren't her only locations. She is going to be in other places. That's just municipal property. I did circulate that to senior staff, and the only comment that was made, was just at the library. It may be really difficult at times because it is a very small parking lot. And right now, because they're doing curbside pickup, it's reduced even further. So I would assume the owner of BJ's is very accommodating and a wonderful person. And I would assume that if she got there and it was chaos, she wouldn't necessarily be setting up shop in the parking lot.
But there certainly wouldn't be a problem at the information center or even the Lions Park for that matter.
No, I've just indicated to stay off of the road because the concern be safety and kids running. She has not submitted a application to date. I think she was just seeing if there was an appetite from council. It is something that she's very interested in, but as long as she stays off of the physical road, and that could mean even just bike up, like it's pretty quick, and she is going to be following guidelines and is looking for guidance from public health and just hasn't heard back yet. But under the current restrictions, food trucks are permitted.
Right, okay. Doug?
You're gonna waive the fee? Because like when we charge Stevie V to go on our property and we charge a fee, and obviously this year, there's not gonna be any booth open at the ballpark, either ballparks. There's not gonna be a booth open anywhere, I don't think, in West Perth. But there would normally be a fee associated with being on municipal property and vending, right? Because the downtown merchants are gonna say, can we go on the sidewalk for free? Yes. But now you got somebody pedaling around, and I don't know if she'd ever get this off and running in this short of notice, but the fee waived?
And that's why my, just going back to my justification and thought process with the reduction of $250 for the patios was just matching the $250 application for another type of business that it's really just processing. I guess that's a decision of council to make, would be to where is council going to say, there's no fee for certain aspects of services that the municipality provides, and then where council chooses to charge, for example, like the swimming's a public swim and you need to purchase for public swimming. That's a council decision of where they want to charge and not charge.
Okay. Anybody else? So to deal with this, oh, go ahead, Doug.
And it could be a COVID nightmare when you get somebody with a 905 area code. You don't know who's running that bike, coming in, running all around town, taking cash money from children where our landfill won't even take cash money. And this person's got to work in cash and got to touch. And do they have to wear the proper PPE? Do they have to have a mask and gloves on? I'm not the naysayer of the world. I just see it as something that, we let the pool and splash pad go. We might let baseball go. We don't know if we're going to open our parks or slides or that. But we have to bring this back, obviously, and make a solid decision on what that person's going to look like riding that bicycle, going door to door to seniors is what she asked for, because they can't get out. And then all at once something happens, and we all take responsibility. I know we're sitting here taking it tonight. So I don't know if we want a bicyclist running door to door, talking to people and taking money and doing that, but that's up to the general counsel.
The other consideration, just on that, Deputy Mayor, would be, I understand what this individual is trying to do, and I think that it would be wonderful in any other time period. But in 2020, I don't know if anybody else grew up in a town that had a Dickie D. I sure did. And the second that you heard that, you all ran out towards that Dickie D. And it does encourage the gathering, as wonderful as it is. Just another thing to consider. I was hoping before tonight to hear back what public health had provided her with, but she hadn't heard anything as of yesterday. So. Okay.
Sure. Sherry, have you got a question?
I do. Yeah. No, it's not my internet glitching. I really do have a question. A few years back, did we not allow a student to have a mobile ice cream or popsicle bike? We did. Van Pelt boy, I think. I remember seeing him at the ballpark and stuff all the time. Did we have?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sure we did.
Councillor Bell, that would have been,
Yeah.
I would say, the summer of 2016 would be, and I never thought of it until you just mentioned that now. I haven't obviously gone back and looked, but we have approved one under this. We used to call it the peddler's bylaw.
Something.
Peddler, not peddler.
I was going to say.
But,
like hawker peddler.
And the second, I was going to say, I'm sure we approved it at least one summer, if not two. And the other part of it, I was just is more of an observation than anything. Carla, just as you're talking to her, I noticed in her letter, she was commenting about getting permission from council to be a part of charity clubs events, maybe just let her know that, you know, the parades and stuff really don't have anything to do with us as a municipality. She would have to go to each of those individual events and pay their fees, which is a great idea.
Yes,
But-
so, yeah, I did
Just
clarify
sorry.
that, even with the agriculture, your fair that you run. I think.
Not just that, all the rest of it too, right?
Yes. I think her intention was just to show her enthusiasm and in the
Yeah.
event she hopes to attend in the future. But yeah, we did have a conversation that was clarified.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
thought, I just didn't want, the way the letter was written, I got the feeling there might be a feel for us approving her to go to the Rotary Club things and the
Yeah.
BIA things, and yeah, okay, good.
Okay, Carla, so what do you want from us here tonight? It was correspondence. Do you want a motion of support, or you want just a direction that you can talk to her further?
So at this point, the individual has not actually applied. Again, I think if she was told you can't go into any of these places, it might detour her from her decision to purchase the bikes. So I think she was looking for pre-approval for, so similar to what we've done with other food trucks, that West Perth Council would authorize the use of municipal lands, and then those lands that she's currently requesting for the purpose of operating a refreshment vehicle until, and our licensing ends December 31st, subject to the terms and conditions of the refreshment vehicle license as issued by the municipality. Now, and that fees be waived would be something that council could choose to add to that resolution. But I would be looking for, are you permitting all locations? Are you restricting the arena, as it would conflict with our Ketterson booth operations? Or some municipalities at this time have actually said, some have embraced food trucks and some have had said, you know what, we're not comfortable with food trucks, and they have denied any food truck applications. So
Okay, well, I
there's a
think,
list of options.
I think the arena is right out of the picture.
Yeah.
You know, as you explained. The library, you explained that as well, so I think that's probably off the table as well, but the other areas could be. I'm just not sure, you know, I guess first of all, you know, is council in support of this? We haven't been asked yet, so it's kind of hard to deal with it when you haven't been asked. I guess, do you want to give staff the authority, delegated authority, that they can deal with this particular individual? And if so, it goes back to Doug's comment, how do you regulate, you know, what precautions they take in dealing with people? Doug?
What if we gave them gave her, is it a her?
Yep.
Gave
Yeah.
her the information booth, the spot there, as long as the washrooms are open, because again, we get back to sanitation, but she's got the 3 parks there right in a row. Like, I mean, if she was at the information booth, she would do a bang up business, walk by, drive by, walk by, come up through the park. But I think if she runs all over, it might be harder for her, but I think she needs to come after, at the next meeting, it's only 2 weeks, and have a plan in place, that maybe that, I don't know if she's gonna buy 20 of them. I can't tell you. A couple, 5, 10?
I thought she had mentioned 7, and I'm going off the top of my head, but it was something hot. I felt was fairly high for a small town, but it was 7. And I think that's what she's looking for, is to not be stationed just at the information park, because she does operate an establishment not too far from there. You were talking about heading that way to go to the washroom when you're on the patio. So, but you know what, maybe what we could ask this individual to do would be to establish a plan receive a letter or some comment from the public health unit of the guidelines that they're putting in place before council feels comfortable providing that authorization to move forward with the license. So I think that would really be staff's recommendation at this point. Each of you have brought up some very valid points. So.
Okay, so consensus is then that we've given you kind of direction to talk with her and go from there. And if there's anything concrete or she wants to proceed, it'll come back to the next council meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay, good. Thank you. And then the next is a letter from H&M Units Inc. regarding sanitary system. I don't know who wants to. Jeff's going to talk about that one. Okay.
Jeff's going to, yeah.
Sure, I can speak to that, Mayor McKenzie. So the expression of interest is there before you. You know, typically we would deal with an inquiry like that through a pre-consultation meeting with a development proponent. So my advice in response would be that if they'd like to have a pre-consultation meeting to discuss opportunities for development of their site, I would recommend that be the way we reply. And I'll just mention to council that as a general rule, it's the development proponent who does the engineering background work and puts together a proposal that we then respond to. And so I think we're going to have a conversation just about what kind of research is going to be done and what the plans are. And then this is one of the questions when you have a pre-consultation meeting. We have a number of questions, and one of them is, you know, the zoning, the official plan designation, the density, the setbacks, and the servicing, sanitary, water, and storm are all going to come up in those conversations. And there's a certain checklist we would work through, and we would answer this question in that context. So I'm just going to encourage that we respond in that way.
Everybody good with that?
So judging by your comments, Jeff, those pre-consultation discussions would also have to include the chief building official as well as our operations manager.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. And as a general rule, Councillor Chankowski, that pre-consultation meeting would be the planner and the chief building official. And I'll often attend those. And really they're a mix of kind of a land use conversation and a development realities and practicalities and also economic development. So it's not uncommon. I just don't, we haven't had one where someone's gone straight to council with the request rather than staff. So I'll respond if that's okay with council.
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay. All right, moving on then. Council reports. First one is the Sabo Bayfield. Where's Mike? Mike.
Yep. We have the agenda there in front of us for this Thursday's meeting, and we have the minutes from May 21st, which I wasn't able to attend. So if there's any questions, I can try and answer them, or I can take them to this week's meeting.
Any questions? Any questions for Mike on anything to do with the Sabo Bayfield? Okay, moving on. Next item is the Mitchell BIA. And Sherry?
Nothing except today, our official announcement of postponement for the music in the park. We're going to postpone the July musicians. I sent out the notices to them today, asking them if they would be okay to rebook into September, since our new pavilion has lighting. So we'll be okay to move in, and we'll see how August goes. But for now, we've postponed July with the hopes of moving those 3 musicians into September.
Okay. Any questions for Sherry? We have the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes from way back in December, and also the minutes from the June 11th meeting, which we dealt with. Who's the chair? Nicholas, are you chair of Committee of Adjustment? Who's Mike is? Okay, sure. Okay, Mike, you want to highlight anything there?
Just quickly, I guess, we had two applications last Thursday night. The one was Pat Skinnerwood, building a hog barn on line 28. So we reduced the request was to reduce the MBS by 25%. I think it was 503 meters down to 380. And part of that was to get the letter, the agreement, which we have talked about, and it's later on here in the package. The second one was just Brian Osborne's house in town, kitty corner from the beer store, just like 180 square foot shed, and he doesn't really have a backyard. It's so it's basically called the front yard, but it's off of Henry Street. It's on the laneway. And it was just to permit that in the so-called front yard. If there's any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Okay, questions for Mike on that? Okay. All right, the motion I have here is that we accept reports from staff and counselors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. Mover and seconder for that, Councillor Marshall, and seconder Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Somebody has to go let their dog out, I know. We have a bylaw here, bylaw number 46, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement between West Perth and Pat Skinnerwood Acres Limited. We give first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 46. And the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign and affix the corporate seal. Mover and seconder for three readings on that. Councillor Trinkowski and Deputy Mayor Wright. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Announcements, we're getting close to Canada Day. And of course, the office will be closed, which is almost the case every day, other than there's people inside. Landfill will also be closed. July the 6th, we have a public meeting, and we also have our regular council meeting then. Any notices of motion? Any other business to bring up at this time? Councillor or Deputy Mayor Wright.
Would we consider, Jeff, would we consider the pavilion down at the Lions Park done? Because I went for a walk last night, which is going to be in the paper because I'm lazy. And the lawn and that around it, are we going to bring that up? Is it, oh, you keep popping around. Is it done? Or should we get some topsoil and bring that up and get some nice grass seed planted there?
So
Jeff has the answer for you on that.
yeah. Tomorrow morning, 8 yards of topsoil is being delivered, and Accuterrace is coming back to spread it this week. And so there was a little bit of extra site work, and the grass didn't catch, and it didn't do well in a lot of places, and that's one of them.
Okay. Any other business? Dean?
For next meeting, could we get an update on the situation with the Bornholm intersection, what MTO and the county are working on that with regards to the request for improved safety at that intersection?
We can ask, that might come through police services even maybe. I guess I'm looking at Doug here. We could maybe ask at the county, we have a meeting on Thursday, whether John has anything to lead. I think they're still looking at that. Certainly with Russellville, they took a few months studying that intersection before they came back with any type of proposal. So, they maybe want another holiday weekend with a camera there to study that.
Yeah, the camera's been removed.
But it'll maybe come back. Like they did that at Russellville, Dean. They had it there and they took it away and they brought it back, and I'll bet you they did that 5 or 6 times.
Okay,
Oh,
well, we'll keep our eyes open for it then.
Yeah, but we can ask, we can certainly ask on Thursday. And there is a police services board meeting coming up, 26, I think maybe rings a bell.
June
And
24th, I believe.
what's that, Carla?
June 24th.
June the 24th. So we can certainly ask at that too, whether the OPP have any information that they can pass along. But I know everybody seems to be actively watching that corner. So we just
Yeah,
have
the
to be
OPP,
patient.
we're patrolling it today.
Well, we just have to be patient and let them do their work, I guess.
No, that's fine.
Okay, we don't have a closed session, so if there's nothing further, if there's no other questions, confirmatory bylaw, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipality of West Perth, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder for that. Mike and somebody who, well, doesn't matter, Murray. And all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And finally, a motion to
Can I
adjourn.
just jump in for just one
Sure.
second? Sorry, I was trying to get into the, just hijack the other business. It's a few questions this week, and I probably should have put it on the agenda. I'm just looking for a little bit of direction from council for garage sales. So many municipalities are discouraging or or completely they're not allowing them at this time. My recommendation would be to not permit garage sales because it only encourages gatherings, and most people travel from outside cities to attend garage sales. However, I'm just looking for a little bit of direction just so we can notify members of the public.
Okay. Comments? Sherry, you have a question? Yeah. You're
Sorry,
hard to
I
pick
see
up.
that.
Your hand is there and then it disappears.
I know, it's, I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions today.
No.
Do we still have, was it a month or so ago, we issued a joint statement with North Perth and other ones that we were not recommending any type of, and if that statement is still active, would garage sales not fall under it?
Because I would think so. It's not explicit, and we're kind of getting through this shifting of seasons, as you notice, some of the things that are being brought to our attention, and garage sales being one of them. So absolutely, I could put it under there, but because it wasn't explicitly stated, I didn't know if I was over-interpreting what we were trying to encourage. But if we had that statement, then we could be a little bit more clear with individuals that plan on having their daily or weekly garage sales or monthly.
Okay, general consensus on that we just don't allow garage sales at this time? Okay, good. All right. Sounds good. Anything else, Carla?
No, sorry
No?
for interrupting.
No. Well, I had one thing I intended to bring up earlier too, and I just thought of it now. So I'm going to use my powers as mayor to do this. And I'm looking at Carla because I'm not sure if staff would be able to do this, but I'm wondering, because of the current situation and no schools, and I've noticed around the community, what they have done is they put lawn signs up in front of people's places where there was somebody that graduated this year from high school. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be a good gesture for the municipality, because we normally participate in the graduation with some sort of effort. That if we could get a list of the names, if we couldn't send them a congratulatory letter from the municipality, if that wouldn't be something worthwhile doing.
Yes, that was on this week's work plan. We can touch base afterwards, but we have a few things that we can work towards for our graduates. It's unfortunate because they don't get to have that last day of school. Absolutely, especially for the graduates of our high school, and hoping that they come back to West Perth once they're done. They go off and then they come back home. I think that's always important. So we can work on that. I do want to note that the line signs are wonderful, but just so council and the public are aware, equally we're getting complaints because people get excited and they honk for a birthday or for workers, but people, we have to be mindful that people have shift work and they have babies that are napping. So we're equally getting complaints that the honk for somebody is actually unintentionally negatively impacting people. So we won't be asking for the honk, but we can do some signage
Sure.
for our graduates.
Okay, well, I just think a letter from the municipality, and, whether it's just a straight letter, or, I could even sign it if you wished on behalf of council, that's fine too, it doesn't matter, but I think it would show a good gesture on our part.
Can I just mention, Mayor McKenzie, we did it, I think we've done it a couple times where we gave the school the letter and they actually labeled them and sent them out. Because they can't share the private information with us, but and given the circumstances, I think it's probably more important this year than it has been in the past. So we could look into that.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, I don't have anything else other than a motion to adjourn at, now I gotta look here, at 8:48. So moved by Nicholas, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed?